Okay. Are there any technology issues that we need to take up before we proceed to pretrial?
I don't believe so from the defense, Your Honor. We should be ready to go.
Your Honor, we don't have any technology issues. We do intend to talk a little bit about the Zoom view in our housekeeping matters. If you would prefer that we do that now, we can.
Sure. Why don't we do that?
Okay. Your Honor, because both parties will be displaying their exhibits via screen sharing, we highly recommend that both Your Honor and any scoring judges use something called side-by-side mode. We've come up with the side-by-side mode to help everyone see the exhibits and the advocates at the same time. And we've already cleared this next request with the tournament organizers. May I put up a brief PowerPoint presentation to explain how that works?
Any objection to that?
No objections, Your Honor.
Okay, you may proceed.
Your Honor, I've just shared my screen. For anyone who's using the default settings, my image is now very small. So this will make it hard to see the attorneys and the witnesses when an exhibit is being shared on the screen. To fix this, we would ask that all judges change their view to something called side-by-side mode. If you change that setting now, you won't have to do it again because Zoom will automatically change to this view whenever an exhibit is shared. It's really easy and we'll walk you through how to do it.
Okay.
At the top of your still see that blank screen is pretty big compared to me, but you can fix that by clicking on the gray marker that separates my icon from the screen share. And if you just drag that marker to the center of your screen, you'll see the screen being shared on one half and my video on the other. Your Honor, if any of the judges or Your Honor has any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Okay. I have no objection to using that screen mode. All I would suggest is that when it comes time in the trial to use it, for example, when you're using an exhibit, then we switch to that screen mode at that time. Does that work?
Your Honor, that does work. However, if any of the scoring judges want to do that now, then whenever a screen is being shared, it'll just automatically switch to that mode. So if that's easier, then that works. But if doing it whenever an exhibit is shared is easier for the scoring judges, I'll leave that up to their discretion.
As will I. Okay, thank you for that information. Anything else to take up technology-wise before we proceed to pretrial?
Nothing from the defense.
Okay.
Your Honor, I have nothing further. Ready to go to pretrial.
All right. Then with that, we can proceed to pretrial housekeeping and motions if there are any. We will start with the plaintiff.
Your Honor, may we first make appearances?
Please.
My name is Deeksha Kohli, appearing on behalf of the plaintiff, Jordan Street. I'd also like to introduce my second chair and co-counsel, Chandler Matz. As I mentioned earlier, you won't be able to see him on the screen, but he'll be handling all the technology for the plaintiff. And once the defense has made their appearances, we do have a few housekeeping matters and motions.
Okay, let's hear an appearance from the defense, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning. My name is Adam Leidig, and I represent the defense, Coach Reese Taylor in today's case. I'd also like to introduce my second chair, Tyler Jeffries. She'll be helping us out during some of the trial today.
Perfect. Okay, let's take up those housekeeping and motion matters from the plaintiff now.
Your Honor, we have only one housekeeping matter since we already addressed the Zoom screen sharing. We note that certain exhibits have already been pre-admitted by Your Honor. So given that, we ask permission on behalf of both of the parties to display on screen any exhibit that has already been admitted.
Okay, any objection to that from the defense?
Your Honor, we have no objections to share or screen sharing any exhibits that have been entered.
Okay, so noted.
Your Honor, we don't have any other housekeeping matters. once the defense addresses any housekeeping they might have, we do have a couple of motions that both parties have agreed to.
Okay. Defense, do you have any housekeeping matters to take up?
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, may we assume that all witnesses have been sworn prior to testifying today?
You may.
And Your Honor, may the exhibits retain their pre-markings? We received them in the record as exhibit 1, 2, 3. May we maintain those markings?
Yes, please.
Your Honor, may we invoke the rule to sequester all non-essential witnesses?
Constructively, yes.
Constructively, Your Honor, my apologies. And Your Honor, may we have the correct pronunciation of your last name?
It's only fair since y'all have given me yours. It's Yelverton.
And Your Honor, one quick thing before we move to motions. I understand Ms. Coley asked about sharing documents on the screen. Would you prefer us just to do it, or would you like us to ask permission prior to screen sharing certain exhibits?
If there is a document that has been pre-admitted or that is admitted prior to your sharing it on the screen, then it's in evidence for all purposes and you don't have to ask me to publish it. Of course, if it's yet to be entered into evidence, I'd ask that you request to publish it before you do.
Sounds good, Your Honor. We're ready to proceed to motions.
Okay, let's hear the plaintiff's motion.
And conferred before trial, and we actually agreed on all of our motions. So I'd like to put that agreement on the record. I can put just the plaintiff's motions on the record, or I can put both, whatever your honor would prefer. Excuse me.
Why don't you state the agreement as to your own motions, and I'll let the defense counsel state the agreement as to his motions.
Yes, Your Honor. Both parties agree that both exhibits 14 and 15 can be admitted into evidence at this time.
Okay. So for the record, exhibits 14 and 15 have been admitted by agreement. Noted?
Yes.
Anything else?
That was all from the plaintiff's motions, Your Honor.
Okay. For the defense, what motion have you obtained an agreement on?
Yes, actually, all of our motions have obtained an agreement. We're feeling very agreeable today, I guess. Our first motion for the defense was the notice that this is, in fact, a bifurcated trial. We're only going to be talking about liability. And so to exclude any mention of the plaintiffs earning a scholarship, moving to a Division I school, anything after high school should be excluded. This has been agreed to. Our second motion was to exclude the information regarding Coach Taylor's previous job in an altercation that he had with a student. Both parties have agreed to exclude this type of evidence, as well as any mention of any subsequent remedial measures that were taken by the coach and the athletic trainer after the plaintiff's death, Your Honor.
Your Honor, one brief clarification as to defense's first motion. Sorry if I interrupted anybody. We don't intend to offer any evidence of any scholarships for the purposes of damages in this case, but I did notice that opposing counsel mentioned that we agreed to not say anything about Rory attending a D1 college, and we do intend to offer that evidence, however, not for the purposes of damages, just to give some background on Rory.
May I be heard then, Your Honor?
Sure.
Your Honor, then under this, we object to any mention of any sort of actions that Rory was anticipating after she unfortunately passed is unduly prejudicial, Your Honor. Here we're just talking about liability. On the day in question, whether or not Coach Taylor negligently caused the death of the plaintiff. Your Honor, Division I schools have nothing to do with determining that liability and is unduly prejudicial.
Okay. Would you like to reply, Ms. Coley?
Your Honor, if I may.
Sure.
Your Honor, first of all, this is a bench trial. So we're not as concerned about unduly prejudicing Your Honor against the defendant. However, there is limited prejudicial value to this testimony. Today, obviously, Rory Street has died. And if she were alive, she would be able to testify to this if she were in court today. Just like the defendant is going to be able to testify to his background and his plans. The defendant shouldn't benefit from Rory Street being dead in that we don't get to learn anything about her. We aren't offering this for damages. just to give some background.
Okay. I'm going to note your objection and overrule it. So the plaintiff is able to offer testimony of attendance at a D1 school. But with that exception, and with the understanding that the parties have agreed to the other motions that the defense counsel has mentioned, then those motions to exclude are granted. And I do take judicial notice that this is a bifurcated trial. Okay. Anything else to take up?
No, Your Honor. With that, the defense is ready to proceed to openings.
Okay. With that, we can proceed to plaintiff's opening.
Your Honor, may I proceed?
You may.
She didn't stop until Rory Street was dead. It's a September afternoon here in Waco. 103 degrees. Rory Street is standing in the middle of a soccer field. Her shoulders are slumped. Her face is pale. Her hands are on her hips. She's been running, sprinting in the sun for more than an hour without a sip of water. She raises her head to see her teammates, all lined up by their coach with one instruction. When I blow the whistle, you're going to take turns tackling Rory. Coach blows the whistle. Rory starts to dribble, and her first teammate knocks her down. And she gets up. Coach blows her whistle again. Another player takes her out. Rory wobbles to her feet, looks to her coach. They all look to the coach. And the coach blows her whistle. 15 times Rory Street tries to dribble. 15 times this player, this teenager, is knocked to the ground. 15 times. Her coach blows her whistle. But there is no 16th time. Because after 15, Rory Street doesn't get up. Her body starts to tremble, then shake, then convulse. Her head bounces against the turf. Until suddenly, she stops. Someone calls an ambulance, but it's too late. The coach in that practice was the defendant, Reese Taylor. The evidence will show that she didn't stop blowing her whistle when she saw that Rory Street was struggling. Didn't stop when she saw that Rory Street couldn't stand on her own. The evidence will show that she didn't stop until Rory Street is dead. Rory Street was 18 years old. She liked watching TV. She liked spending time with her friends, and she liked T-Bone's barbecue. Rory's mother is suing the defendant, Coach Reese Taylor, for her wrongful death. And as the plaintiff, we have the burden of proving it's more likely than not that the defendant's negligence killed Rory Street. And we're going to meet that burden with 3 simple facts. First, the defendant put every child at risk. Second, the defendant put Rory Street in danger. And third, the defendant ignored the warning signs. So let's take those one at a time. Fact number 1. The defendant used extreme disciplinary methods that put every child at risk. The defendant's a soccer coach. And you're going to learn that there are rules for high school soccer coaches. Rules to make sure that coaches don't push their players too hard. And one of those rules requires that when the temperatures reach triple digits, there must be a water break every 15 minutes. On September 7th, 2018, it was 103 degrees Fahrenheit. Practice lasted for more than an hour. The evidence will show that the defendant was required to provide players with at least 5 water breaks. You won't hear that the defendant provided even 1. In fact, the evidence will show that the defendant wasn't just running practice without water. She was using extreme discipline without water breaks. Sprint 180 feet down the field, crawl 180 feet back, over and over again. And today, the defendant's going to tell you, well, it's a tradition. We've been doing this for years and no one has gotten hurt. But you won't hear of another coach who has ever used this method in 103-degree heat. Which brings me to point number 2. While the defendant put every student at risk, she put Rory Street in danger. Because that afternoon, the defendant created a new form of discipline. A tackling line. Every player got in a line and took turns slide tackling Rory. That's when a player slides on the grass, cleats first, and tries to take the ball away from their opponent, even if it means taking out their legs and knocking them to the ground. It's a part of the game. But you will learn that it had never been used as punishment until September 7th, 2018. When Rory was already exhausted, 15 teammates, one after the other, knocked her to the ground. Which brings me to point number 3. The defendant ignored the warning signs. Today, one of Rory's teammates will take the stand. She'll testify that when the defendant created this tackling line, Rory's face was pale. Her hands were on her hips. She was struggling to breathe. And when the other players knocked Rory down, she struggled to get up. In fact, you'll learn that eventually, when Rory couldn't get up, the defendant walked over, grabbed Rory's shirt, yanked her to her feet, and then blew her whistle. So they knocked her down again. Within minutes, Rory was dead from a heat stroke. Now, I want to be upfront about what happened when Rory's body was taken to the coroner's office. They found trace amounts of cocaine residue in her system. And it's true, cocaine can contribute to heat stroke. But you'll hear expert testimony that the symptoms of a heat stroke involving cocaine are the same as the symptoms of any other heat stroke. The evidence will show that when the defendant saw the symptoms of heat stroke, she should have called for help. Instead, she called for more discipline. Now, we acknowledge a good coach pushes their players to be the best. But the evidence will show that this coach pushed Rory too far. The evidence will show she didn't let Rory stop for a water break. She didn't let Rory stop when she was struggling. She didn't let Rory stop when she couldn't stand on her own. At the end of this trial, we're going to ask you to find the defendant liable. Because she didn't stop until Rory Street was dead. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Coley. Mr. Ledet?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
Yes.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
And may it please the court. What happened to Rory Street was a tragedy. But contrary to what Ms. Coley just told you, Coach Taylor didn't cause it to happen. It happened because of a series of events Coach Taylor didn't know about. A series of events that started with the plaintiff's drug usage and ended with the plaintiff developing a condition that weakened her heart and led to her death. Your Honor, these are the facts in today's case. And these facts are exactly why the plaintiff will fail to meet their burden to prove to you by a preponderance or a greater weight of the evidence. But before we discuss that any further, I'd like to talk to you about Coach Taylor, someone we're going to meet today. Coach Taylor was born and raised right here in Waco. She's an important member of our community. She's a mother, she's a teacher, she's a coach. She coached for 20 years. In 6 of those years, she was right here at Waco High. That's actually how she met the plaintiff. We're going to learn about the coach's relationship with the plaintiff and how during the years the plaintiff played for the coach, and the coach thought the plaintiff was extremely healthy and appeared to be very physically fit, in peak physical condition. At least that's what the coach thought. We're going to hear that throughout their years together, Coach Taylor saw the plaintiff at practices, scrimmages, and games, and never once noticed a problem. That Coach Taylor saw her doing strength training, drill training, skills training, and never once noticed a problem. And that wasn't different when September 7th of 2018 came around, because on that day, Coach Taylor saw the plaintiff doing sprints, drills, slide tackling drills, and never once noticed a problem. That was until the plaintiff collapsed. And because the coach didn't know and could not have known, that means the coach isn't responsible. But Your Honor, today we're going to learn what was responsible. And that thing that was responsible was just another thing the coach didn't know about and could not have known about. That there was cocaine in the plaintiff's system. Cocaine that was a powerful drug, a dangerous drug, a drug that can be linked to heart failure, to the weakening of the heart muscles, to the decrease in blood flow. And as much as Ms. Coley wants to tell you it was trace amounts, well, we're going to see the toxicology report in today's case, as it's already been entered into evidence. And we're going to see that a day after the plaintiff had unfortunately died, there were 60 nanograms per milliliter in her blood. Yet again, another fact that Coach Taylor didn't know and could not have known. Your Honor, what happened to Rory Street was a tragedy. But it wasn't caused by Coach. It was caused by cocaine. And because of those facts, Your Honor, we ask that you find Coach Reese Taylor not liable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Plaintiff, you may call your first witness if you're ready.
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff calls Aubrey Saracen. Your Honor, may I proceed?
You may.
Good morning, Miss Saracen. Can you see and hear me okay?
Yes.
Please introduce yourself.
My name is Aubrey Saracen.
How old are you, Miss Saracen?
I'm 19.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a student at Rice University.
Did you know Rory Street?
Yes.
How did you know her?
We grew up together. We've been friends since we were little kids.
Now, you said that you did know Rory. Is Rory still alive?
No.
When did Rory die?
September 7th, 2018.
Do you know where Rory died?
Yes.
Where?
At the soccer fields at our school, Waco High.
I want to give the court an idea of what Rory was like. Miss Saracen, could you open a document that's been marked as Exhibit 3 in your notebook? And just let me know when you have that in front of you.
Okay, I have it open.
Do you recognize Exhibit 3?
Yes.
What is it?
It's a picture of Rory Street, my friend when she was alive.
Is this how Rory looked in 2018?
Yes.
Your Honor, plaintiff offers Exhibit 3 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objections to Exhibit 3, Your Honor.
Exhibit 3 is admitted.
And Your Honor, now that Exhibit 3 is in evidence, may we display it on the screen?
You may.
Now, you said that you and Rory played soccer together.
Mhm. Yes.
How good of a soccer player was she?
She was great. She was planning on being a D1 athlete.
Let's talk about your relationship with the defendant. Do you know Reese Taylor?
Yes.
How do you know the defendant?
She was my coach when I played at Waco High.
I want to be upfront about your relationship with the defendant. While she was your coach, what was your role on the team?
So I played for her all 4 years. And by the time I was a junior, I was on the varsity team. But then my senior year, she demoted me a little bit to where I was splitting my position with actually her daughter.
So at that time, how did you feel about losing that full-time starting position?
I was upset about it. But overall, at the time, I knew as quickly as a player can lose a position, they can also gain it back with hard work. And, I was more academically oriented. I don't play soccer in college now, so I was upset, but it was a long time ago.
You said it was a long time ago. How long ago was it?
I guess a year and a half now.
Now, I want to talk about the conditions the day that Rory died. Did you see Rory that day?
Yes.
Where?
At school and then at practice.
Miss Saracen, can you please open up a document that's marked as Exhibit 9?
Okay, I have it open.
What is Exhibit 9?
A picture of our soccer field.
Is this how the soccer field looked on September 7th, 2018?
Yes, I'd say so.
Your Honor, plaintiff offers Exhibit 9 into evidence.
Any objection to Exhibit 9?
No objections to Exhibit 9, Your Honor.
Exhibit
And
9?
may we just... Sorry, Your Honor, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No problem. It's admitted.
May we display Exhibit 9?
Nay.
So, Miss Saracen, who decides when practice gets scheduled?
Our coach.
On the day Rory died, what time did the defendant schedule practice?
About 3:15 after school.
How hot was it?
Oh, well over, I think at least 100 degrees, but I think over.
During practice, does the team take water breaks?
Yes,
And who decides when the team gets those water breaks?
coach.
On the day Rory died, do you remember how many water breaks the defendant gave the team?
I don't remember if we took any water breaks.
So let's talk about what the defendant had Rory doing at practice that day. Miss Saracen, can you open up Exhibit 2 for me and just let me know when you have it in front of you?
Okay, I have it open.
Do you recognize Exhibit 2?
Yes.
Is Exhibit 2, or sorry, what is Exhibit 2?
It's an aerial view of the soccer fields at Waco High.
And is this a fair and accurate copy of the soccer fields as they were on September 7th, 2018?
Yes.
Your Honor, plaintiff offers Exhibit 2.
Any objection to Exhibit 2?
No objections to Exhibit 2, Your Honor.
And Exhibit 2 is admitted.
And may we display Exhibit 2?
Nay.
Now, Ms. Saracen, what's the blue box that we see?
That's our practice soccer field.
And what's the red box?
That would be Burma Road.
What is Burma Road?
It is an area that we get sent to, the players would get sent to as punishment by coach.
So who decides when players get sent to Burma Road?
Coach.
And when a player goes to Burma Road, what do they have to do?
So basically what happens is you run 30 yards down the field and then you dribble another 30 yards. And then you kick the ball you have to score on an open net, basically. And then you bear crawl the 60 yards back. And you just repeat that again and again until coach tells you you can stop.
So I just want to make that last part clear. Who decides when a player gets to leave Burma Road?
Coach.
On September 7th, 2018, how many players went to Burma Road?
2, myself and Rory.
Who was first?
Me.
And the second?
Rory.
Did you ever hear the defendant say why she was sending Rory to Burma Road?
Yes.
What did she say?
Coach said, get your sorry butt to Burma Road. And basically, she was useless at practice, so she might as well run until she passes out.
How did Rory look while she was running and crawling on Burma Road?
Not good, not like her normal self. She looked pale, no color in her cheeks or her lips, and definitely not like the picture we saw. And she was just kind of breathing heavily and stuff like that. Like, she just didn't look good.
So let's talk about how Rory died. Did Rory finish practice on Burma Road?
No.
Where did she go next?
So after Burma Road, coach had her come back to the practice field for this other new drill.
How close were you to Rory when she went to the practice field?
I think I was about 20 yards.
How well could you see?
I mean, I could see her well enough to still see that she was pale, and I could see that she wasn't herself.
Ms. Saracen, I want to get to how Rory was looking in a second. But for now, can you tell us what happened when the defendant had Rory come back to the soccer field?
Yes. The whole team basically lined up in front of Rory and was going to do this new slide tackle drill.
I want to get a sense of what Rory looked like before that drill began. Mr. Matz, can we pull up Exhibit 3 again? You said this was how Rory normally looked.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Yeah.
this how she looked when the defendant had all the players lined up across from her?
No.
How did Rory look?
She was kind of bent over with her hands on her hips, like almost supporting her, and she was breathing heavily. Again, she's fair complected, but she was a lot more pale than that, like no color, and just looked lifeless.
So after the players lined up across from Rory, what did they do?
Basically, one at a time, each player would run and slide tackle Rory over and over again, 15 times.
What's a slide tackle?
It's basically, in a soccer game, it's used because usually the player who's on the receiving end of the slide tackle is in possession of the ball, and the opposing players will try and run and slide with their feet towards the party who has the ball, towards their legs, to kind of get them out of possession.
So when that first player slide tackled Rory, what did she do?
Fell to the ground. I mean, her legs were kicked out from underneath her.
And then what happened?
Then it happened again and again and again, 15 times, 15 players.
You said it was 15 players?
Yes.
So how many of those 15 times did Rory get knocked down?
Every single time.
What happened after the 15th time Rory got knocked down?
Well, basically, she stayed on the ground, and she was convulsing and not breathing, and everyone rushed over. It was really chaotic, and we called 911.
Miss Saracen, did you see Rory get up?
Definitely not.
We've talked about the last moments of Rory's life. Now I want to focus on what the defendant was doing.
Okay.
Before the players began tackling Rory, did you hear the defendant give any kind of instructions?
Yes.
What did the defendant say?
Coach said, on my whistle, the next player needs to go and slide tackle Rory. So every time coach whistled, a new player would go.
Before September 7th, 2018, how many times had you seen the defendant use this 15-on-1 tackle drill?
Never.
When Rory got knocked down, did you ever see the defendant approach her?
Yes.
What did the defendant do when she approached Rory?
Well, Rory was still on the ground because she was struggling to get up, and the and coach just yanked her by her jersey up and told her to keep going.
And what did the defendant do after she yanked Rory up by her jersey?
Coach blew her whistle.
You said the defendant told everyone to tackle Rory when she blew her whistle.
Yes.
How many times did the defendant blow her whistle?
15 times.
When did the defendant stop blowing her whistle?
When Rory died.
Pass the witness.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Coley. Mr. Ledig, do you have a cross-examination for this witness?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
You may.
Good morning, Ms. Saracen.
Good morning.
Or good afternoon, rather. I understand today may be pretty difficult for you. If you ever need a break, just let me know, okay?
Okay.
I do want to talk to you about something you just mentioned on direct examination, though. And when Ms. Cully was asking you questions about the slide tackle, she said that the goal was to tackle Rory. Do you remember her saying that?
Yes.
That's not true, right?
I don't know what any other goal would be from a slide tackle.
Wait, are you trying to tell the court you don't know the purpose of a slide tackle?
Well, it's to get the ball away via knocking someone's legs.
Exactly. It's to get the ball, right?
That is the ultimate goal.
Okay. I just wanted to clear that up for the court. But I would like to talk to you about your relationship with Rory. You two grew up together.
Yes.
You were best friends for some time.
Yes.
And you also shared a love for soccer, right?
Yes.
You were played at a very young age together.
Yes.
And through that, you actually started playing in high school, right?
Yes.
You saw that Rory was pretty good at soccer, right?
Yeah, she was a star.
She was fit,
Yes.
healthy.
Yes.
And prior to September 7th of 2018, you know a specific recollection of ever seeing Rory having any problems, do you?
I don't know about no problems. Everyone has problems sometimes.
Okay, well, let me be a little more clear. Prior to September 7th of 2018, you don't have a specific recollection of Rory ever having any medical problems on the soccer field, do you?
Correct.
So let's talk to you about soccer practice. Soccer practice usually started around 3:15, is it?
Yes, after school.
Right, and it could sometimes last until 4:30 or 5.
Yes.
This was pretty typical, right?
Yes.
In fact, you don't know a soccer practice outside starting at 3:15. True?
I guess not now.
No, and you also know the Waco heat, right?
Yes.
You know that it's going to be hot in Waco.
Correct.
And when you're out in the heat, you're practicing.
Yes.
Is that a yes? I'm sorry?
Yes. Sorry.
Okay. It must have been the audio. So when you went out to practice on September 7th of 2018, you were used to the heat.
Yes.
And regarding the actual practice itself, you knew that there was water available, right?
Yes.
There's always water available.
Yes.
And breaks are usually occurring at practices, right?
Yes.
Around about every hour, correct?
Correct.
And you said on direct examination, you can't remember if you took a break during that during September 7th, right?
Yes.
So it's possible you did take one, just to be clear.
It's possible.
You just can't remember.
Exactly.
And that's okay. I'd like to talk to you more about September 7th. So when you started soccer practice that day, you started doing the Burma Road, right?
Yes.
The Burma Road is a drill that Coach Taylor has you do.
Yes.
It has you sprinting 30 yards,
Yes.
dribbling a ball 30 yards,
Yes.
shooting the ball into an open goal,
Yes.
and then bear crawling.
Yes.
All things that you're used to.
Yes, if you're doing the Burma Road.
Right, because you've done the Burma Road before.
Yes.
You've done the Burma Road in the Waco heat before.
Yes.
And this day was no different.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty hot, but yeah.
So just to be clear, that day was no different?
Yes.
So when you're running Burma Road, Rory got sent to Burma Road as well, right?
Correct.
And that's when you started talking with her.
Yes.
She told you that she felt funny,
Yes.
that her chest hurt.
I think she said that.
And you described her as looking pale, right?
Yes.
And she said that to you, to be clear, right?
Yeah, I was the only one on the Burma Road.
You don't know if she ever told Coach Taylor?
No, because Coach Taylor was at the practice field.
Well, Rory did go back to that practice field, right?
Yes.
You don't have any idea if Rory told Coach Taylor?
No.
You don't have any idea if Rory ever told an athletic trainer?
No.
And the athletic trainer was at all your practices, right?
Yes.
Never told, and Rory never told any of your teammates about what she was feeling, correct?
No, because none of our teammates were on the Burma Road.
Right, but like we just talked about, she went back to the practice field.
Yes, but the conversation you're referencing is from when we were on Burma Road together.
I'm just talking about what you know, and you don't know if she ever shared that information with anyone else. True?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And so when Rory went back to the practice field, she was called over by Coach
Yes.
to do the slide tackle drills, right?
Yes.
And as we talked before, you know what a slide tackle is.
Yes.
It's an important part of the game.
Yes, it is.
It's fundamental.
Yes.
Certainly, you've been slide tackled before, I can only assume.
Yes, but never 15 times in a row.
I didn't ask that, man. Directing you back to my question, you've been slide tackled before?
Yes.
And you've actually done some slide tackling yourself, probably.
Yes.
You've done slide tackle drills with Coach Taylor before, right?
Not this type of drill, but yes.
So just to be clear, you've done slide tackle drills with Coach Taylor before?
Yes.
Okay. Miss Saracen, you were surprised what happened to Rory on September 7th, weren't you?
Surprised? Yes. You don't expect your friend to die at soccer practice.
Right. During your conversation with Rory, she never told you about a heart condition, did she?
No.
It would surprise you that Rory would have a heart condition, right?
Yes.
To this day, you don't think Rory does drugs, true?
She can't do drugs because she's dead.
Well, when she was alive, ma'am, it would surprise you that if she did drugs, right?
Yes.
Because when she was alive, you believe she didn't do drugs, true?
Correct.
It would surprise you to know that the plaintiff had cocaine in her system the day she passed, wouldn't it?
That would surprise me.
I'm sorry, your audio cut out. That would surprise you?
Yes.
Okay. And just to be clear, it surprised you when she collapsed that day, right?
I mean, it surprised me that she died, yes, but after seeing how bad she was the whole practice, I would have expected her to pass out or something crazy.
Well, directing you actually back to my question, isn't it true that it surprised you because, to use your own words, Miss Saracen, it came out of nowhere?
I think someone dying at a soccer practice comes out of nowhere, yes.
Yes, Miss Saracen, thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Is there a redirect for this witness?
I think you're on mute.
Oh, can you hear me now?
I can. I was just asking if there's a redirect for the witness.
Sorry, Your Honor. I think I was on mute. My apologies. We have no redirect for this witness. May she be excused?
She may be excused then.
Thank you.
And Clancy, you may call your next witness.
Your Honor, Ms. Saracen is our only live witness today. However, before the plaintiff rests their case in chief, we'd like to read certain portions from Exhibit 16, which is the expert report of Dr. McConaughey, into the record.
Okay.
Per Your Honor's pretrial ruling, this exhibit is already in evidence.
That's my understanding. Is that also the defense counsel's understanding?
Yes, it is, Your Honor.
Okay, then you may proceed.
And Your Honor, may we display the portions of the report as we read them?
Okay.
Based on all the above, it is my opinion, within a reasonable degree of medical certainty, that Rory Street died as a result of heat exhaustion and/or a heat stroke on September 8th, 2018. It is also my opinion, within a reasonable degree of medical certainty, that Rory Street's death was not a result of cocaine use. And with that, the plaintiff rests.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Coley. Defense, are you ready to proceed with your case in chief?
Yes, Your Honor, but before we begin, we actually have a motion.
Okay, then we can take that up at this time.
Yes, Your Honor. The defense requests a directed verdict against the plaintiff. And, considering the light most favorable to the non-moving party, which is the plaintiffs failed to prove the burden. They failed to prove that what happened to Rory Street, the unfortunate facts and the circumstances that happened, were foreseeable to Coach Taylor. Now, we heard today from Aubrey Saracen, someone who was at the field the same day as Coach. And she described how Rory was complaining about her chest problems and her head, but no evidence came out that Coach Taylor knew or should have known of this. And Your Honor, because of this, they failed to meet their burden.
Okay, Ms. Coley, do you have a response?
Yes, Your Honor. Defense's motion for a directed verdict, otherwise known as a Rule 50 motion, should be denied because Rule 50 only applies in jury trials. But even if the defense brought their motion under Rule 52C, which applies in bench trials, it should still be denied. Under Rule 52C of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, the court should only enter a judgment if it has already made a factual finding against the plaintiff on a dispositive issue. Here, the plaintiff has met its burden of proof on each element of our case. First, we proved negligence. In 103-degree heat, the defendant subjected a player who was running, sprinting, crawling to being tackled 15 times with no evidence of a water break. Next, we proved causation. The chief of cardiology, Reagan McConaughey, has concluded that Rory died as a result of heat stroke under the conditions imposed by the defendant. Accordingly, the defense's motion should be denied.
Okay. Mr. Ledig, you have a last word on this one.
Yes, Your Honor. And again, Your Honor, we weren't objecting under Rule 50 or 52C. We were just asking for a directed verdict. And because of the facts we've established in today's case, the plaintiff has failed to prove. I understand Ms. Coley's indication that there is no evidence of breaks, but Your Honor, in fairness, there's no evidence that no breaks were there. Both of us had got the actual opportunity to ask Ms. Saracen, and she cannot remember one way or another. Additionally, Your Honor, I understand that we talk about subjecting to players to the heat, but the fact of the matter is, on Ms. Saracen's cross-examination, she talked about how she was used to the heat because she's played on the soccer team multiple times and was used and acclimated to the heat, Your Honor. And because of these facts that have been submitted to the court, this directed verdict motion should be granted.
Okay. Thank you very much. That was a cogent, well thought out, and articulate motion for directed verdict. I'm going to deny it. So we're ready to proceed at this time with the defense case in chief.
Yes, Your Honor.
Your Honor, before we proceed, I'm having a slight issue with Zoom. Can I briefly have a moment to fix that?
Sure.
Your Honor, if it would be okay, we could take a brief recess to give Ms. Coley as much time as she'd like. I don't want to.
I'm not going to rush her either. She can take whatever time she needs to figure out the technology issues. I've been strongly discouraged from granting an actual recess, but I prefer we stay on the record. So.
Yes, Your Honor. I'll try to solve this as quickly as I can. Sorry about that.
No problem at all. Okay. I have the plaintiff has used 26 minutes and 39 seconds. So she has, on my count, around 28 minutes remaining. And defense has used, wait, 1 second. That number's wrong. I have defenses only used 12 minutes and 31 seconds for 42 and a half minutes remaining.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor. At the beginning of our case in chief, we actually like to read a portion of Miss Jordan Street's deposition. Your Honor, may my co-counsel come on the screen and help with the reading of the deposition?
Certainly.
Tyler, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, awesome. Inviting the court's attention to page 7 of Jordan Street's deposition. It starts on page 36 of the record. There we go. Lines 8 through 12. Question: did Rory regularly visit her pediatrician?
I apologize. There is at least once a year for a physical.
Question: during any of those yearly physicals, were there any issues?
None. Rory had never had any serious medical issues, just normal kid stuff.
Your Honor, this concludes the reading of Jordan Street's deposition. We call Coach Reese Taylor to the stand.
Before we do that, is there any cross testimony that the plaintiff would like to offer into evidence?
No, Your Honor. We're happy to move on to the next witness.
Okay, great. Then you can call your next witness.
Your Honor, we call Reese Taylor to the stand. Coach, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Can I call you Coach?
If you'd like.
Okay. Your Honor, may I proceed?
You may, and Coach Taylor, you are advised that you have been previously sworn and are under oath.
Yes, Your Honor.
Coach, introduce yourself to the court.
My name is Reese Taylor. People call me Coach Taylor too.
Coach Taylor, what do you do for a living?
I am a teacher at Waco High, but I'm also a soccer coach.
How long have you been a soccer coach?
For 20 years now.
How many of those years were you at Waco High?
I think it's been a few. I'm pretty sure it's 6.
Tell us about any educational background you have regarding to your soccer coach.
So I try to stay like really abreast on everything that's going on in the soccer arena. And that includes going to yearly conferences and hearing from like other soccer coaches, either if they also coach high school teams as well as college teams, or even some professional soccer coaches. So I'm really involved in the coaching community.
Why are you involved in the coaching community?
Well, I try to be the best coach that I can be, and I really care about my players, so I want to make sure that they are getting the best coach that they can get.
You said about these functions where there's high school, college, and even maybe professional coaches going there. Approximately how many times do you go to these events?
I go to them really often. I don't remember how often I go, but it's at least annually.
I'd like to talk to you about what coaching means to you. Why do you do it?
I mean, I love the game. I've been playing it for most of my life. So I wanted to instill that passion in my players and have them love the sport that I've loved. And maybe one day it'll set them up for success in the future.
Tell us about how you interact with players on your team.
Well, I know that I can be a strict coach. I know that being a good coach requires discipline. It requires teaching your players how to play effectively, both on the field and off the field. And sometimes that requires criticism and harsh practices.
I'd like to talk to you about September 7th of 2018. But actually, before we do that, I want to talk about how you run practices.
Mm-hmm.
About what time do you start practicing?
We do it right after school lets out, so that the girls are already there, and it's right around like 3:15, 3:30.
Why do you do it then?
Well, like I said, the girls are already there at the school, but also it can be pretty warm during the games as well as like right after school. So we try to get them acclimated to the weather as best as we can.
Do you provide water or anything during practices?
Yeah, the girls bring water bottles. We also have water on the field, so there's always water around.
And during practices, do you ever take breaks?
If they request a break, yes. And sometimes we have scheduled breaks too. It just kind of depends on the day.
I'd like to talk to you about September 7th of 2018. Now, during that day, when did soccer practice start?
That practice also started at 3:15 or 3:30.
Could you tell us if you saw the plaintiff that day?
Yes, I did.
What did she look like?
Well, that day she wasn't, I mean, she was one of our star players normally, but that day she wasn't really acting like she normally does. She was kind of like goofing off and she just seemed to be somewhere else, mentally.
You said that something seemed off, that she was goofing off. In the past, do you have a specific recollection of ever seeing the plaintiff have any medical issues while you were her coach?
No, I don't.
So after you saw the plaintiff, as you described, goofing off, what did you do?
Well, we started practice with a scrimmage that day, and she was goofing off in that scrimmage. So then we moved on, and I told her to go run Burma Road, so that she could continue to be conditioned that day.
What's Burma Road?
Burma Road is a exercise that we do, and I mean, I did it whenever I was a soccer player, and it involves running 30 yards and then dribbling the ball for 30 yards and then shooting a goal, and then you would come back and you would bear crawl back to the starting line, and you would repeat that.
About how many times would you repeat it?
It kind of depends on the day if we need to move on or not, but I'd say like probably 3 or 4 times.
Do you have a specific recollection of how many Burma runs the plaintiff did on September 7th of 2018?
I wasn't on the Burma Road field. I was watching over the scrimmage that was going on, so I don't remember how many times she did it.
Could you see the Burma Road from where you were during the scrimmage?
It was pretty far away. Yes.
So tell us what you observed when you saw the plaintiff on the Burma Road.
She was practicing, or she was doing Burma Road, but like not with her full effort that she normally did. She was kind of, like I said, goofing off, and that was really frustrating to me because I thought that, Burma Road would help her remember that we are here for a reason that day, and that was to practice. And she was, again, goofing off.
What did you do when you saw the plaintiff goofing off?
Well, then we moved into another exercise drill, the slide tackling drill.
What's a slide tackle? We've heard a lot about it today, but let's hear from a soccer coach. Well, what is a slide tackle?
Yeah, so in a game, a slide tackle involves whenever an opposing player is trying to get the ball from the player that currently has the ball, they will attempt a slide tackle to get the ball out from underneath that player's foot. So it's a pretty dangerous type of tackle. So we try to practice that tackle in practices normally.
Why do you want to practice that tackle in practices?
Oh, sorry. Yes, to get them acclimated to that so that they don't perform it dangerously during a game.
So tell us about the slide tackle drill that you had the plaintiff do.
So I placed Rory in the center of the field, and then I had the other players come and perform a slide tackle a few times so that, if that were to happen to her while she was playing, she would have that experience.
Approximately how many times was Rory doing the slide tackle drill?
I think it was 14 times.
Now, were you in the courtroom for Miss Saracen's testimony?
Yes, I was.
Were you here when Miss Saracen said that she saw you go and grab a hold of the plaintiff and pull her to her feet?
Yes, I was.
Did you do that?
I did not.
So after you sent the last person to finish the slide tackle drill, what did you observe about the plaintiff?
Well, she remained on the ground. She was obviously in distress, and I called over our PT, Jess Merriweather, to come and help.
You you mentioned the PT, Jess Merriweather. Was Miss Merriweather always at these practices, to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, she was supposed to be always at the practices, and she was because we were a team to make sure that the girls were safe.
Coach, prior to September 7th of 2018, did you know anything about the plaintiff having a heart condition?
I didn't.
Prior to September 7th of 2018, did you know anything about the plaintiff using cocaine?
I did not.
On September 7th of 2018, did you know the plaintiff had a heart condition?
I did not.
And on September 7th of 2018, did you know the plaintiff was using cocaine?
I did not.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions at this time.
Okay. Ms. Coley, do you have cross-examination for this witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Good afternoon, Miss Taylor. Can you see and hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you for asking. Now I want to talk to you about your priorities. You're proud of your coaching record, right?
Quite.
You've won your district,
Yes.
you've won your region,
Yes.
but you've never won the state championship.
No, we are still trying.
So you want to win the state championship.
Yes.
Now, Rory Street was one of the best players you had ever coached.
Yes.
And 2018 was your last chance to win with Rory on your team.
Yes, because she was going to graduate.
You'd agree that a coach should never put winning over safety.
Absolutely.
And you coach high school students,
Yes, I do.
teenagers.
Yes.
When you're coaching high school soccer, safety should always come first.
Yes.
So let's talk about safety standards. On direct examination, you mentioned that you keep up to date with the Soccer Coaches Association, right?
Yes, I do.
And in June 2018, you attended a meeting run by the Texas High School Soccer Coaches Association.
Yes, I did.
And this was their annual coaches meeting, right?
Yes.
Ms. Taylor, you have an exhibit notebook in front of you, correct?
Yes, I do.
Could you open up exhibit 11 and let me know when you have it in front of you?
Yes, I can. 1 second, please. Okay, I have it in front of me.
Exhibit 11 is the PowerPoint slides from that coaches meeting.
Yes, it is.
And this is a fair and accurate copy of those slides.
Yes.
Your Honor, plaintiff offers exhibit 11.
Is there any objection to exhibit 11?
Yes, Your Honor, there is an objection. We object on the grounds of both hearsay and that this document is substantially more prejudicial than it is probative. In regards to its prejudice, Your Honor, there's been no foundation laid that these guidelines that were placed in a PowerPoint actually are the Texas standards for how practices should be run and that it's a legal requirement. Your Honor, we fear the plaintiff is entering Exhibit 11 in order to try to set a new standard of care or some sort of heightened standard of care. And as you know, Your Honor, that's improper. Because of that, this should be kept out.
Response?
Your Honor, I'll start by addressing the hearsay concern. We're not offering this document for the truth of the matter asserted. Rather, it goes directly to the defendant's knowledge that she was aware this is what the Texas High School Soccer Coaches Association said and how she chose not to follow these guidelines. And now with the prejudice argument, Your Honor, as we've mentioned, this is a bench trial. So we aren't as concerned about prejudicing Your Honor. However, the prejudicial value isn't that high. Here, like I said, the probative value is it goes to the defendant's knowledge. And there is very little prejudicial value. We're not offering this as a legal standard. We're not offering this to say that the Texas state government has imposed this as a law. We've already put into the record that these are the slides from the Texas High School Soccer Coaches Association. That's all we're offering them for, to show the reasonableness of the defendant's actions.
Okay, Mr. Big, you get last word.
Yes, Your Honor. Inherent in Ms. Coley's answer to show the reasonableness of the Coach Taylor's actions is exactly why this document is unduly prejudicial for the record. And if I may make an informal offer of proof with Exhibit 11, there's languages like must and is not, definitive guidelines that opposing counsel is attempting to show that these are the standards and these are the standards that Coach Taylor was not meeting. Nowhere in these documents is it saying that that they're supposed to be accepted by all soccer coaches around the field. And Your Honor, as far as we know, these guidelines are way higher above than any sort of rational, ordinary duty of care that Coach Taylor has to our students. And because of this, the prejudice is undue, Your Honor.
Okay, I'm cognizant of the fact that this is a bench trial and my ruling might be different if we're at a jury trial, but with the caveats offered by the plaintiff's counsel that they're not trying to substitute a new standard of care or offer this for the truth of the matter asserted, I will admit the exhibit. So Exhibit 11 is admitted.
And Your Honor, may we display Exhibit 11 on the screen?
You may.
Now, I want to compare what the Texas High School Soccer Association told you in June to how you ran your practice in September. Here on these slides, it says that when temperatures exceed 100 degrees, coaches must give their players breaks. Right?
Yeah, that is what it says, yes.
Coaches must give their players breaks every 15 minutes.
That is what it says, yes.
On September 7th, 2018, the temperature was 103 degrees.
Yes, it is. Yes, it was.
At the time Rory collapsed, she'd been practicing for more than an hour.
Yes, it was.
So if you follow these guidelines, the team should have received at least 4 breaks.
If I was following these guidelines, yes.
Ma'am, you can't tell us if you gave your team a single break on September 7th.
Correct.
You can't tell us if you gave Rory a single break on September 7th.
Correct.
So let's talk about what you had Rory do that day. During a scrimmage, you saw that Rory missed some easy shots.
She did.
She made some bad passes.
She did.
And that was unusual for Rory.
Yes.
But you didn't pull her aside and say, Rory, what's wrong?
No.
You didn't say, hey, are you okay?
No.
You didn't say, Rory, why don't you grab a glass of water?
No, I didn't.
You chose to punish Rory.
I chose to have her run the exercise drills. I don't ever think that I ever said it was punishment.
Well, I want to make sure we understand what those exercise drills look like.
Yes.
You would call them a form of discipline, right?
Yes, I would.
You said on direct examination that it was called Burma Road.
Yes.
You would use Burma Road to teach the players a lesson.
To teach them discipline, yes. To teach them a lesson. I would agree with you.
So, ma'am, just to clarify, that's a yes to my question.
Yes.
You use Burma Road to teach players a lesson.
Yes.
First, the player sprints 90 feet.
Mhm.
They dribble at top speed for another 90 feet.
Yes.
They take a shot on an open goal.
Yes.
And if they miss, well, they have to start over.
Yes.
But if they score, they have to bear crawl
Yes.
for 180 feet.
We typically describe it in yards, but yes.
So, man, that's 180 feet.
Yes.
And they bear crawled for 180 feet on their hands and feet.
Yes.
And when they're done bear crawling for 180 feet, they do all those steps again,
Yes.
over and over.
Yes.
They don't stop when they're tired.
No.
They don't stop when they're thirsty.
No.
They don't stop after a set number of laps.
No, they do not.
They don't stop until you tell them they can stop.
Correct. They don't stop until I tell them to stop.
So let's talk about when you had Rory stop on September 7th. And you said on direct examination that you weren't actually on Burma Road, right?
Correct.
But you watched Rory as she ran Burma Road.
Correct.
You said she wasn't running at her full effort.
Correct.
She wasn't moving at her normal speed.
She was not.
But you didn't pull Rory aside and say, Rory, what's wrong?
No.
You didn't ask, hey, are you okay?
No.
You didn't say, Rory, maybe you should get a glass of water.
I did not.
You chose to impose a second type of discipline on Rory.
Yes,
15 players got in a line.
they did.
And when you blew your whistle, the first player would slide tackle Rory.
Yes.
Then you'd blow your whistle, and the next player would slide tackle Rory.
Yes.
You claim this wasn't a punishment.
Correct. I do continue to say it was not a punishment.
You called it a drill.
Yes.
You said on direct examination that you imposed this drill so that Rory could gain some experience.
Yes.
But ma'am, this wasn't for experience. This was for discipline.
It was for experience and discipline. Typically, everything that we do in everything that we do in practice is for experience and discipline.
So it was for discipline.
Yes.
You had never used slide tackling as discipline on your own child in practice.
I had not.
You had never used slide tackling as discipline on Aubrey Saracen.
I had not.
You've been coaching soccer for 20 years.
Yes. Yes.
In those 20 years, you had never used slide tackling to discipline anyone in practice.
Not yet.
So the first time you chose to impose this discipline was in 103-degree heat.
Yes.
The first time you imposed this discipline, it was on a player who had already been running and crawling Burma Road.
Yes.
So let's talk about what happened when you used this slide tackling to discipline Rory. After the first person slide tackled Rory, you didn't stop the discipline.
I did not.
You didn't stop the discipline after she was tackled the second time.
I did not.
And you testified on direct examination that she was slide tackled 14 times.
Yes.
Ma'am, you'd agree that it was actually 14 or 15 times, correct?
Yes. It's 14 or 15.
So you didn't stop the discipline until Rory had been tackled 14 or 15 times.
Correct.
You didn't stop the discipline until Rory collapsed.
Correct.
Pass the witness.
Okay, redirect.
Very briefly, Your Honor.
All right.
Coach, you were just asked about your perception of Rory when you were running practice in the scrimmage. Why you didn't offer her water or a break? Tell us what you saw with Rory when she was during the scrimmage.
During the scrimmage, she wasn't really playing like she should. She just wasn't performing like she normally does.
Did it look like, from your rational perception, did it look like she was struggling?
It didn't look like she was struggling. It looked like she was goofing off. I wouldn't say goofing off is the same thing as struggling.
And on Burma Road, when you saw her, did it look like she was struggling there?
No, it once again looked like she was, not paying attention and just I don't know how else to describe it besides goofing off. She wasn't paying attention. She was goofing off and she wasn't struggling.
So as a soccer coach for 20 years, when you see a player not taking practice seriously and goofing off, what do you do?
We move into another exercise which enforces the discipline that they need in order to perform well at a game.
And when you ordered that last discipline, did you know Rory was going to collapse?
Absolutely not.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Okay. And it's my understanding that in this jurisdiction, recross is ordinarily not permitted. Is that correct?
I believe so, Your Honor, but regardless, we don't have a recross.
Perfect. All right. With that, the witness can be excused and, or she may step down, and you may call your next witness, Mr. LaFleur.
Your Honor, there's no more live witnesses from the defense. However, we do have portions of another deposition as well as an exhibit that has already been entered into evidence. May we read from the deposition first?
You may.
Okay. May my co-counsel come up and help? She's already there. Okay.
You're already ahead of us.
Okay. Inviting the court's attention to Jess Merriweather's deposition, starting on page 8. It's going to be lines 8 through 9 and 18 through 24.
Okay.
Can you let me know when you're there?
I'm there.
Okay. Starting on page 8, line 8. Question. Were you at practice the day Rory died?
I was.
Inviting the court's attention to line 18 of page 8. At any time, did you see Rory stumbling, faltering, or slowing down in a way that would have indicated she was in trouble?
No, not at all.
Question. Was Rory sweating hard?
I mean, yes, but everyone was, including me. It was a really hot day.
This concludes our reading of Jess Merriweather's deposition. Your Honor, we also have a document that's been entered into evidence as exhibit.
Before we do that, does the plaintiff wish to offer any portions of this deposition transcript?
Yes, we do, Your Honor. We'd like to read the portions of the deposition, the lines that opposing counsel skipped.
Okay.
Specifically, page 8, lines 10 to 15. May I?
You may.
Question. Did you see Rory running Burma Road? Answer. I saw Rory over on Burma Road, but I wasn't watching her closely. Question. Did you see Rory during the slide tackle drill? Answer. Again, I saw that it was happening, and I certainly saw parts of it, but I did not watch it closely. That's all from the plaintiff for this witness, Your Honor.
Okay. Does the defense wish to offer any further portions of this deposition transcript?
Not from the deposition of Jess Merriweather, Your Honor.
Okay. Then that concludes deposition testimony from this witness. You mentioned an exhibit that you wish to offer. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor. Starting with the autopsy report as well as the toxicology report. These documents have already been admitted into evidence. They're exhibits 14 and 15.
Okay.
Tyler, could you bring exhibit 14 on the screen, please? Might be having some issues. Tyler, is everything okay with the, okay, there we go. Okay. Inviting the court's attention to paragraph 2 of exhibit 14. It reads, from the anatomic and laboratory findings in pertinent history, I ascribe death to sudden cardiac death. And just to be clear, Your Honor, this is the autopsy report for Rory Street. Inviting the court's attention to cardiovascular system, which could be found on page 1 at the bottom. Cardiovascular system. The heart weighs 287 grams and has a normal size and configuration. Dissection reveals no evidence of chronic cardiac disease. However, there was a finding of myocarditis. Your Honor, addressing exhibit 15 in the record, which is the toxicology report. Tyler, could you bring up that document as well? Maybe? Okay. Your Honor, as it reads here towards the bottom of the toxicology, just to be clear, this is a toxicology of Rory Street's blood that was taken a day after she had passed. That there was 60 nanograms per milliliter of cocaine found in her body during the toxicology tests. Your Honor, this concludes any mention of Exhibit 15. We also have a toxicologist report. It's Exhibit 18. Your Honor, inviting the court's attention to Exhibit 18, page 2. Tyler, could you bring up that exhibit, please? Inviting the court's attention to the last paragraph. Cocaine use can ultimately lead to cardiac arrhythmia, heart attacks, cerebral hemorrhage, or stroke, and heart failure. Additionally, cocaine use can induce hyperthermia, which lowers the threshold for heat stroke because it inhibits the body's natural cooling process by causing vasoconstriction in the extremities, which keeps most of its blood supply internal. Inviting the court's attention to page 3 and paragraphs 1. Dr. McConaughey describes the following symptoms for Rory Street on the day in question: struggling, unusually pale, feeling funny, complained of chest pains, hands on her hips, breathing heavily, groaning, twitching, and convulsing. Many of these symptoms are consistent with cocaine use. Rory complained of chest pain, feeling funny, which could be related to any number of the symptoms of cocaine use. Groaning, which could be related to nausea, and convulsing, twitching on the ground. All these symptoms are consistent with cocaine use. Additionally, the autopsy report in this case indicates that Rory Street's heart shows signs of myocarditis, which is an inflammation or swelling of the heart muscle. Myocarditis can affect the heart muscle and the heart's electrical system, reducing the heart's ability to pump and causing rapid and abnormal heart rhythms, also known as arrhythmias. Myocarditis is one of the physical symptoms associated with cocaine use, which means this finding is also consistent with cocaine use. Inviting the court's attention to paragraph 4, based on the foregoing, it is my opinion, within a reasonable degree of medical probability, that Rory Street's death was caused, at least in part, by the use of cocaine. Your Honor, this concludes our reading of Exhibit 18. With that, Your Honor, the defense rests their case in chief.
Your Honor, may the plaintiff provide rebuttal excerpts from Exhibit 18?
I am aware of no local rules that prevent that, and so I'm going to default to what I believe the federal rules to be and permit it.
Your Honor, we'd like to read a portion of Exhibit 18, which opposing counsel just read from, and a portion of Exhibit 19, which is that witness's CV. Per Your Honor's pretrial ruling, Exhibit 19 is also already admitted.
Understood. You may proceed.
On Exhibit 18, page 3, paragraph 3, it says, "It is true that the amount of cocaine found in Rory Street's system was nominal, only 60 nanograms per milliliter." Now directing the court's attention to Exhibit 19, under the section titled Previous Trial Experience. Have been retained as an expert in toxicology in over 200 cases. Have testified at trial or in deposition over 50 times. And that's all from the plaintiff, Your Honor.
Okay. Anything else from either side before we proceed to closing arguments?
No, Your Honor, we're ready to proceed to closing arguments.
Okay. Do we want to do a time check before we proceed?
Please.
Okay. By my count, the plaintiff has 17 minutes and 50 seconds remaining, and the defense has 27 minutes and 45 seconds remaining. Please do not use all that time.
I don't plan on it, Your Honor.
Ms. Coley, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you may proceed when ready.
The defendant you met today was sympathetic, thoughtful, and compassionate. But the defendant who took the stand today was not the same defendant who took the practice field on September 7th, 2018. Today, the defendant said, "I love my players like they're my own kids." But that day, take your sorry butt to Burma Road. You're useless. Today, she said, "Safety first. Safety is my top priority." But that hot summer day, you're going to run until you pass out. Today, on trial, I want my students to reach their full potential. But in practice, she grabbed a student by her shirt, yanked her to her feet, just so she could be knocked down again. The defendant didn't stop when Rory Street was struggling to move, didn't stop when Rory Street was struggling to breathe, didn't stop when Rory Street was struggling to stand. She didn't stop until Rory Street was dead. As the plaintiff, we had the burden of proof. We had to prove it's more likely than not that the defendant's negligence caused Rory to die. And we met that burden with 3 simple facts. Number 1, the defendant used extreme disciplinary methods that put every child at risk. Most of us don't want to be outside when it's 103 degrees. She had students sprinting in that heat. The Coaches Association told the defendant, when it's 100 degrees out, you must have breaks every 15 minutes. Not could, not should, that you must. Yet not a single witness could remember the defendant ever giving these kids a break. And I asked the defendant, "You can't tell us if Rory had a single break on September 7th. And her answer? No. The defendant didn't just use those conditions for practice. She used them for punishment. She called it discipline. Burma Road. Sprint 90 feet. Sprint another 90 while dribbling. Take a shot on the goal. If you miss, your penalty is starting over. But if you score, your reward is crawling 180 feet on all fours. No shade, no water, no breaks. Congratulations. Now, the defendant tried to tell you that this was about helping her teenagers, helping them reach their potential. No. This was about the defendant putting competition over caution, about putting herself above her students. She'd won the district. She won the region. But in 26 years, she had never won the state championship. And you know what they say? There's no points for second place. The defendant wanted to win so badly that she put her player's safety at risk. Which brings me to fact number 2. While the defendant put every student at risk, she put Rory Street in danger. Today, the defense spent a lot of time telling you that Burma Road wasn't a big deal. They called it a tradition. They told you it had been done for decades and that you never heard anyone has ever been hurt. Okay. But what about the tackling line? That tradition started on September 7th, 2018. The defendant admitted that in her 26 years of coaching, she has never subjected any student to that tackling line. Not her worst players, not her best, not her own child, not anyone. Except Rory Street. Today, the defense made a big deal about slide tackles being a part of the game. They asked Aubrey Saracen, they asked the defendant, but this wasn't slide tackle practice. It was violence. Organized, deliberate violence. The coach, the person in charge of these children, told the team to take turns knocking Rory down. 1, do it again. 2, again. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, again, until it was 15 times. The defendant didn't stop until Rory Street was dead. Which brings me to point number 3. The defendant ignored the warning signs. If the defendant had done this to a player who looked healthy, it would have been horrendous. But to do it to a player who was obviously struggling, it was downright unspeakable. Pale, lifeless, hands on her hips, breathing heavily. That's how Aubrey Saracen described Rory before the defendant had 15 athletes treat her like a punching bag. Now, the defense said that Aubrey Saracen is biased, that she was Rory's best friend, and that the coach made her share her starting spot. But which eyewitness is more biased? The college student who lost some playing time 2 years ago? Or the defendant who makes a wrongful death lawsuit today? And whose account makes more sense? The one where a star athlete looked fine, until she suddenly keeled over and died? Or the one where Rory got worse and worse until it was too late? So let's go to the jury verdict form. we had to prove negligence. That's a lack of ordinary care. Ordinary care would be following the rules by the High School Coaches Association. Ordinary care would be no Burma Road when it's 103 degrees outside. Ordinary care would be protecting the kid who's struggling, not pummeling her. The defendant was negligent. Now, the defendant tried to say, I wasn't negligent because I didn't know Rory had cocaine in her system. She never told me. But the defendant has a problem. The symptoms of heat stroke caused by cocaine are the same as the symptoms of any other heat stroke. You don't have to take my word for it. Exhibit 16, our expert's report. And Exhibit 18, the defense's expert report. The symptoms of heat stroke caused by cocaine are identical to the symptoms of heat stroke caused by anything else. Those signs were in front of the defendant's face, and the defendant didn't stop pushing Rory. That's negligence. So the only other element we had to prove was causation. Exhibit 14. The autopsy says that Rory died from cardiac arrest. Exhibit 16. Dr. McConaughey says that Rory's cardiac arrest was caused by heat stroke. When a person's body overheats so much that their heart gives out. So what could have caused Rory's body to overheat? This was a star 18-year-old athlete in peak physical condition. She had an amount of cocaine in her system that even the defense admits was nominal. We can say, more likely than not, that the cause of this heat stroke was running, sprinting, crawling, falling, standing again and again, nonstop for more than an hour in 103-degree heat. More likely than not, the defendant's negligence caused Rory's death. Now today, the defense has talked to you a lot about cocaine. The defense says that Rory caused her own death by using cocaine. And here, the defense has the burden of proof. They had to prove that their expert was right and ours was wrong. So let's consider the credentials. Our expert has a medical degree from Baylor. Theirs has a bachelor's degree in toxicology. Our expert is the chief of cardiology at McClellan Memorial. Their expert is a toxicologist who has never worked in a lab. Our expert is in Waco working with doctors. Their expert travels around the country working with lawyers. The defense case requires a comparison of the experts, but there's no comparison. The defense has failed to meet its burden. And that's it. If you conclude that we met our burden of proof and the defense didn't, you're done after question 1. But I don't want to be too presumptuous. If you reach question 2, if you think that Rory and the defendant bear some responsibility in Rory's death, question 2 asks you to divide that responsibility between them. And here, we want to ask you to remember who we're talking about. One was a teenager who spent hours of her life following the instructions of her coach. One was an adult who decides everything from when her students go home to when they get water. The party who bears overwhelming responsibility for the tragedy of September 7th is the party who was supposed to be responsible on September 7th. Rory Street was just 18 years old. She had her whole life in front of her. And what makes her death even more painful is how easily it could have been prevented. All the defendant had to do was stop the abuse. But the defendant didn't stop when Rory was struggling in 103-degree heat. Didn't stop when Rory could no longer stand on her own. Didn't stop when Rory had been knocked to the ground once, twice, 15 times. Didn't stop until Rory's heart stopped. We ask you to find the defendant liable because she didn't stop until Rory was dead. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Ledig, would you like to close for the defense?
Yes, I would, Your Honor.
You may proceed when ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. And may it please the court. As I was sitting here thinking about the trial in today's case and all the words that I said, all the words that Ms. Coley said, all the witnesses that have testified, and all the documents we've seen, I think Aubrey Saracen said it best. She took the stand. She got up at the beginning of today's trial and said, and I quote, "When someone dies at soccer practice, it comes out of nowhere." Your Honor, we've seen the evidence in today's case. We've heard the testimony. We've seen the series of events that started with the plaintiff's drug use and ended with the plaintiff's death. And Your Honor, that's a tragedy. And nobody here is disputing that. But Coach Taylor didn't cause that tragedy to happen. And it's a hard thing to say, but the plaintiff's decisions caused that tragedy to happen. Now, the plaintiffs point out that they have the burden of proof in today's case, but there was something in Ms. Coley's closing argument that I'd like to highlight. She talked about duties, the duty that Coach Taylor had and the duty that she owed to her students. But she pointed out and held up Exhibit 11 and told you that it was her duty to follow those guidelines, Exhibit 11. Those guidelines which we had a conversation about before. Those guidelines that aren't the law. As much as Ms. Coley wants to hide from her burden and make it easier for her burden to meet, well, we know why. Because the plaintiff is grasping for straws. The plaintiff is struggling to meet their burden. The plaintiff is attempting to raise their burden without doing the homework first. In Your Honor, this doesn't raise the duty of care. Because the fact of the matter is, based on your pretrial ruling and your jury instructions, the ordinary care is what Coach Taylor had. Coach Taylor did not have to follow those guidelines. And the plaintiff cannot point to a single shred of evidence that shows that Coach Taylor had to follow every single one of those guidelines down to the letter. And they had that burden. And Your Honor, I'd like to talk about today's case. And we can break it up into two different portions. What Coach Taylor knew and what Coach Taylor simply could not have known. Let's start with what Coach Taylor knew. Coach Taylor knew that it was going to be like any other day in September 7th of 2018 when she stepped out on that field. She knew that it was hot, sure, but she's used to the Waco heat. That all the players are used to the Waco heat. Even Aubrey Saracen, who we heard from today, knew that it's hot in Waco. It's just the fact of the matter. And that she was used to practicing in those degree heat. Ms. Coley stated in her closing argument, most of us don't want to be outside in 103 degree heat, but we know who did. Rory, Aubrey, Coach Taylor, the trainer. And we know why. Because all of them loved the game of soccer. So much that they would go out in the heat when we'd much rather stay in air conditioning and go and play the sport that they love. And on September 7th of 2018, when Coach Taylor put her whistle around her neck, well, she saw Rory. And she knew the history that she had with Rory. How Rory was a star player. How in the past, Rory had done drills, strength training, drill training, skill training, and never had any medical issues. How she'd seen Rory in the past at practices, at games, at scrimmages, and yet again, no medical issues. So for Rory, and specifically for Coach Taylor, it started out like any other day. Except this time Rory was acting funny. And not in the way the plaintiff is trying to paint this picture for you, but what Coach Taylor observed with her own eyes. That Rory, the star forward, a leader on the team, wasn't taking practice seriously. I understand there is a such thing as tough love, but it's like grounding your kids. When they aren't acting properly, you show them some discipline. Well, to be clear, Coach Taylor didn't go and hit Rory. Coach Taylor didn't berate her using obscenities. Coach Taylor told her, run the Burma Road. The Burma Road that involves sprinting, kicking the ball, dribbling, bear crawling, all skills that great soccer players need to be able to do to play the game well. Something that Rory did. She played the game well. And so Coach Taylor tended to the other teammates when she saw Rory still goofing off. And so yet again, what did she do? Well, she had Rory do the slide tackle drills. And yes, was this the first time that they'd done that specific slide tackle drill? It was. But the slide tackle is not something that Coach Taylor drummed up when she was drawing out plays. No, the slide tackle is a fundamental part of the game. We heard this from Coach Taylor. We heard this from Aubrey Saracen. This fact is not disputed in today's case. But the purpose of a slide tackle is a bit disputed. Ms. Coley wants you to believe, Your Honor, that a slide tackle is a hit. That we go and we drill that player as hard as we can, and, well, if the ball falls out, well, that's good. But that's not what a slide tackle is. A slide tackle is when you slide and try to kick the ball. Yeah, do you hit the other player? Yes, you do. But again, that is a fundamental part of the game. And so when Coach Taylor called Rory's teammates to the line and called Rory and told her to dribble the ball and told her teammates to slide tackle, she was just reinforcing a fundamental part of the game. And unfortunately, that's all Coach Taylor knew before the plaintiff collapsed. And she didn't get up. Rory's death is a tragedy. But it's a tragedy that Coach Taylor could not have known about. Your Honor, now let's talk about what Coach Taylor didn't know. What was going on behind the scenes. The series of events that surprised Coach Taylor. And not only surprised Coach Taylor, but surprised Aubrey Saracen and surprised Rory's own mother, Jordan. Starting off with how Rory was feeling that day. And we heard the testimony from Aubrey Saracen that the plaintiff had joined her on Burma Road and complained that her chest hurt, that she felt funny, that something was off. But But unfortunately, Coach Taylor can't be held responsible for something that she didn't know. There's been no evidence that Rory told Coach, hey, I'm feeling funny. Hey, this is going wrong with my chest. I need a break. And we're not saying that it's Rory's fault what happened. Because the fact of the matter is, even Rory didn't know that she had a heart condition when she sat out on that soccer field on September 7th of 2018. And that's a sad fact in today's case. But it's not a fact that should be held against Coach Taylor. Another portion that Coach Taylor simply didn't know about was Rory's cocaine use. And we saw a toxicology report in today's case. The toxicology report that indicated 60 nanograms per milliliter of cocaine found in Rory's system a day after she died. And while it's in dispute whether or not there was 60 nanograms per milliliter when she died, or it was much less or much little, it's a good thing that doesn't matter in today's case because of something else that Coach Taylor didn't know about. Rory's heart condition. Now, we saw evidence from toxicologist Spencer London in today's case. And Spencer London laid out what myocarditis is. Simply put, myocarditis affects your heart, weakening the muscles, decreasing blood flow, causing issues for the user. The user of what, you ask? The user of cocaine. Something that's not in dispute by either party in today's case, that Rory was using cocaine and that it showed up in her system on the day that she died. That is another sad fact. But yet again, that sad fact cannot be held against Coach Taylor. Because not only did Coach Taylor not know this heart condition, but Rory's own mother, Rory's own pediatricians, even Aubrey Saracen, one of her best friends for many years, knew nothing of either a heart condition or drugs. And when you tally the facts that Coach Taylor knew and what Coach Taylor didn't know, we see the picture clearly. We see that there is a series of malicious events lurking in the background outside of Coach Taylor's knowledge, and that series of events took Rory's life. Now, opposing counsel, she wants you to believe that heat stroke took Rory, and that it was all Coach Taylor's fault that heat stroke took Rory, but we saw evidence in today's case what cocaine does to the body. It can cause heat stroke. It can lower your threshold for what the body can cool off. It can put you in more of a danger zone. Your Honor, Coach Taylor didn't make Rory do cocaine. And because of that, Coach Taylor simply could not have known, should not have known, and would not have known of the series of events that would take the plaintiff's life. The plaintiff has the burden of proof in today's case, and they failed to meet their burden. Even with heightening the duty of care, as Ms. Coley did in her closing argument, she still has failed to meet her burden because of the facts in today's case. The facts of what Coach Taylor knew when they set out on a typical Waco day to run practice, the same that they've done for years, and what she didn't know. That Rory was feeling funny, that she was using cocaine, and that she had a heart condition because of that cocaine. And because of those facts, Your Honor, because of what Coach Taylor knew and what Coach Taylor didn't know, we ask that you find Coach Taylor not liable. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ledig. Ms. Coley, does the plaintiff wish to offer a rebuttal?
Yes, Your Honor.
I have that you have 1 minute and 40 seconds remaining. So you're welcome to a rebuttal for that amount of time.
We'll make do. Opposing counsel just got up here and criticized us for showing you those PowerPoint slides from the Coaches Association. Said that they're not the law. And they're right. Those PowerPoint slides aren't the law, and we never said that they were. Those slides are common sense. It's common sense that you drink water when it's hot outside. It's common sense that you drink water when you're running, when you're sprinting, when you're crawling, when you've been tackled in 103-degree heat. But you didn't hear a single person testify that there was even one water break in over an hour. The defendant didn't just neglect ordinary care. She defied common sense. Defense counsel also told you that the defendant knew what Rory was like, that she had been coaching Rory for years, having her do drills, having her practice. But remember what every witness told you today. The defendant had never used that tackle drill before. The defendant had never had the entire team take turns tackling one player. The defendant had never had a player pummeled 15 times in a row until September 7th. Until the defendant used it on Rory. The defendant didn't stop those tackles until Rory Street was dead. We ask you to find the defendant liable. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you both. I will consider the case submitted. And I have been instructed to ask that everyone remain on the Zoom call until I have confirmation that the ballots have been received by the tournament coordinators. So I'm going to ask the sworn judges and witnesses and second chairs remain in as well.